The girls of hip hop, Missy Elliott.
So
Little
I
Kim, I don't
too
know.
am the beneficiary of affirmative action, but it does not mean that I was not. Oh, here you go again. I thought we left that potato salad back in the last episode.
For Memorial.
What you say? What you talking about, Willis?
Okay.
This is the All Rev'd Up podcast, season 7, episode 4. I'm Reverend Emmett Price.
And I'm Reverend Irene Monroe.
Irene, before we jump into our conversation on Beyonce, taking us back to our Black country roots, let us thank each of our listeners and viewers. This 7th season is the direct result of your support, your encouragement, and your comments. Thank you for listening to us on the various podcast apps and for watching the actual live recording of the podcast on our YouTube channel. We are so grateful for your support, your encouragement, your feedback, your reviews, and your comments. Thank you so much for sharing the podcast with others.
And a tsunami of thanks, as always, that I can never say enough of for your continued listenership, as well as to our creative geniuses, Cavante Smalls and Kyla Wright.
Now, Irene, did you know that April 17th is blah, blah, blah day?
No, I didn't. but thank you for telling me. All right.
I thought that you get a kick out of that since you like to blah, blah, blah a lot.
That's all right. So I'll fit right in. Absolutely.
On March 29th, 2024, mega superstar Beyonce released a second installment of her trilogy, Cowboy Carter. The first of the trilogy was the 2022 release, Renaissance. Conceived during the height of COVID, Renaissance in many ways was a genre-bending ode to Black joy, with numerous features and a tremendous amount of references to the brilliance, swag, and courage of the Negro Renaissance. Now, Cowboy Carter is another brilliant, now you know I'm biased, genre-bending conversation starter. So, Irene, let's have the conversation. Is Cowboy Carter controversial, or is it just another phenomenal work headed towards multiple platinum status?
You know what, Emmett? It is both. We're talking about the queen. This is a sister here who you cannot just put in one musical genre. She has shown us her brilliance in the previous albums that have come out. What I like about this film is that it really helped excavate a hidden history about country music. And I like the opening, like that song there. Did you hear how pronounced the banjo is? Because people forget that is an instrument that we brought here from West Africa. But what I like about this music here is that she's not only excavating and exposing, Black country roots, but she's opening the door for so many more. Because you know what? We know this. Listen, Tina Turner, tried to do it. Ray Charles. There was a moment when Ray Charles was at a performance, and it was a white performance, and he came out with some country western singing, and they booed him. But people don't understand. Listen, we also Louis Armstrong. So it really, really helps to sort of pay homage to those who try to break through. Some have, like, what is it? What is the Neville?
The Neville brothers.
The Neville brothers certainly tried to. Darius Ruckus certainly did, but before he broke into country music, he was known as Hootie and the Bluefish. And the Blowfish. The Bluefish. I'm thinking of food here. He's thinking of, and then listen, what's interesting about it, you was with a well-known country singer,
Rihanna Gittins.
Absolutely.
That's her playing the banjo at the beginning of this. That's Rihanna.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what I like about this here, because whites have really been the gatekeeper of country music here. And I really appreciated that Dolly Parton, came out to support her. And many other artists, white artists who are well known in the field, in the field came out to support her, not just in lip service, but are also on the album.
Yeah.
I mean that, and unfortunately, I'm sorry that they had to do that in many ways. I think they understood the politics about it, but I appreciate so much that they did do it. I think another thing that I like about it is a homage to Charlie Pride. See, I grew up with Charlie Pride
Mhm.
and Hank Williams because I'm of your mother's and dad's
Well, you grew up
generation.
listening to them.
Yeah,
You didn't
yeah,
go to
yeah.
school with them.
I did go to school with, right. And Nikki Guyton, just recently in 2020, she became the
Yeah.
first Black female artist to perform at the American Academy of Country Music
Hmm.
Awards here. So, I mean, it's been a rough road. And Little Nas, oh my God, Old Town Road, featuring Billy Ray Cyrus.
Hmm.
Again, that hit, that was Billboard #1. And what was so interesting about that, Emmett, he was a gay boy, unabashedly gay when he was out, producing this song here. So I think that she has done something about, for country music that, I mean, a lot of artists have been trying to do for decades here. But I need to say this here. So one of the questions is like, are they opening the door for Blacks to re-enter music that they have founded? And so in many ways, I mean, that's the way it works here. And so in many ways, I can say yes, because what happened is that it started kind of like with Little Nas, that it was facing, they were losing they were losing money. I mean, it's not that the industry was dying, but the music wasn't reaching the kind of capacity that it hoped that it would. And so Little Nas kind of, in many ways, kind of starts trickling in. But we have to remember this: we have R&B artists and hip hop artists like Ludacris and LL Cool J and even Snoop Dogg who have collaborated with
Hmm.
country music. So,
Well,
the industry is that when the industry thinks it's fading, a lot of times they'll open the door and say, "We'll let you in on what you have discovered."
I think Beyonce is brilliant, and her brilliance is evident in a number of metrics. So she is now the first Black woman to hit #1 on the
Yeah.
Billboard Country chart. One of the legends of country music, a Black woman, Linda Martell,
Oh,
really didn't get
yeah,
any,
yeah.
accolades back then. Beyonce's Cowboy Carter has caused people to go backwards, as you mentioned, and actually research who the other women were before. And those women are actually getting nods and getting plays and getting likes and getting all those things now. But one of the things I want to say is, and
Hmm.
this is about country, and you alluded to the whiteness of country.
The gatekeeping, yeah.
Yeah, country is one of these musical forms that really grows up in a time, somewhat around industrialization or whatnot, when many white people were moving from, the and I don't like these terminology, but I use it just as a descriptor, lower working class to middle class. And that class movement allowed country music to be adult music immediately and not necessarily be in alignment with the youth culture like rock music or pop music. So it became a
Okay.
mature kind of music, which really spoke about mature topics. And in that maturity, it actually became hyper politicized by often conservative folks, whether they were conservative Christians, whether they were conservative Republicans, whether they were conservative white nationalists, whether they were conservative white supremacists. That
Mm.
whole notion gave country music a whole cultural apparatus that was developed and enveloped around whiteness. And
Oh,
so it
okay.
makes it very difficult for a Black artist to really break through that, because it's no longer just music.
Okay,
It's a
it's a
culture, it's a
politics.
social culture
Yeah.
that
Okay.
operates as a political body. So for Beyonce to really break into that, because remember when the first two tracks were released, a
Mm-hmm.
month or so before the whole album was released, and maybe longer than that, radio stations, excuse me, were boycotting, and
Well, boy.
people had to request the tracks to be played. And some disc jockeys were like, no, we're not playing that, until the protest caused their viewership and their listenership to go down. And so now we see that with the whole album out, she is tracking everywhere. The Beyhive has really
It has
shown up.
expanded, yeah.
I mean, it's really amazing.
But see, this is the question I had. See, so now I thought the roots of country music became popularized in rural white communities, and they brought their sort of Celtic, Scottish, British, and Acadian folk traditions to the New World. And in that sort of isolation there, was able to carve out a certain sound to country music, but of course being influenced by the slaves that was certainly there. Like, for instance, the banjo, we brought that here from West Africa,
Sure.
but then they used it for minstrel shows and to mock us. And so we lost control of that instrument in many ways.
Well, we never lost control of it. Rhiannon Gittins is one of the great, musicians who, out of North Carolina, she had a group called the Carolina Chocolate Drops.
Chocolate, yeah.
And so we never lost it. It just was not prominent and not popular because of what you just said. What you just said is that white folks went into isolation. They formulated subdivisions. They formulated suburbs in these rural areas. And essentially, because of redlining and all kinds of other mechanisms, Black folks were not able to commingle or cohabitate in those areas. So when you have a space that is homogenous and white, monolithically white, they can take whatever they want from anybody else and codify it as theirs and normalize it within their cultural with no response from anybody else.
This is what I kind of understood. So I thought like when I think of Bell Hooks, who has passed away, she's from Kentucky. Yeah. You have Black people called Black Appalachians. Remember when I went on that trip, I told you that. So you have that music there because you have two things. Because you have Black country folks who bring the slave tradition and our music of the spirituals and the blues commingling with the country music. The country music that I thought, okay, so there's a certain kind of sound that we bring, a certain kind of sound, sort of like. So I thought it was like we brought a certain kind of sound, original sound to country music. Yeah. But then these different white groups, I was going to say immigrant groups, how dare I, because I know they're anti-immigrant. But goodness. these various white cultural groups, like the Celtic tradition, the British, all of those traditions commingled, and they brought us. It's sort of like rock and roll. You're the ethnomusicologist. Tell me about it. Okay,
I was about to say we got to take a break. We're gonna come back on this on the other side, but I got to remind you that the soundtrack of country and Western music, it was the soundtrack to the Westerns. And remember what happened in the Westerns? All of our indigenous siblings got scalped, and all of us got shot and kidnapped and enslaved and all. Right. Okay. So part of the cultural milieu was almost a displacement of the Blacks and the indigenous, and and that's part of the cultural milieu that is ascribed within the narrative of country and Western. Now they try to clean it up by getting rid of the Western piece and just calling it country. But you remember them old John Wayne movies you used?
That's what I was going to say, because that was the image of a cowboy, and Oakley and Annie Oakley was the image of a cowgirl. So Beyonce with the cowboy hat. I mean, that's such a radical. That's
messing people. That's what
the cognitive dissonance folks is certainly having. But when we get back, please explain this for me, because I want you to see. So you said that we didn't lose control of the banjo, but the fiddle, the violin, because the question is, I have to tell you something. It wasn't really until I saw the TV series of Roots in 1977 with Lou Gossett, who God bless his soul, just recently passed away. I had no idea that we played the violin. We call it the fiddle.
Oh, we played it well.
I had no idea because they call him Fiddler. Do you remember this
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
in the movie in
We'll,
the series?
we'll talk
But
about it.
all
We
right, now
gotta go.
come
We
on
gotta take a
now.
break. We
Okay
gotta take because
now.
our young producers is like waving their hands at me.
Okay. All right.
I'm
All
getting a
right.
little nervous. These young people. We'll take a break. This is our Rev'd Up podcast. We'll be right back.
I just got to name her Kizzy. And when she grow up, I tell her what Kizzy really means.
We know is the blues and what we know is spirituals. And those early soundings through some of those instruments, steel guitar or a slide guitar or a harmonica or a fiddle or the banjo that I talked about became some of the early instruments used in what we now call country or country and Western music.
This is the All Rev'd Up podcast, and we're back. That was a clip from what in the world? BBC's World Service. That was me. That was an interview of me.
I love it.
That was from Friday, March 29th, as they did a piece on can Beyonce's new album, Cowboy Carter, boost Black country artists. And Irene, before the break, you talked about the fiddle and why is it that we have not seen a lot of Black folks playing the fiddle or the banjo up until recently. And I will say that much of that is because the popularization of commercial music, what I mean by that, music that is recorded and commodified, has almost replaced the reality of live music. And in many places in the South, and I'm talking about people's homes, and I'm talking about, when your granddaddy, like mine, owned 40 acres and on the weekends, folks would come around and hang out under the big oak tree and just, cook out and all those kind of things and play music. It wasn't for recording, and it really wasn't for entertainment other than the people who were there. And that's where the fiddle lives. When you go to the South Carolina Sea Islands, right? The
Right, the
the
Gullah
um,
Islands,
the,
the
the
Geechee
Gullah
folks.
Islands. That's
Yeah,
what you hear. You hear
but
fiddle. You hear that singing.
but you know what though? Yeah. So in the Gullah Islands, you're right. When I traveled to Sapelo Island, just
Yep.
off of the Georgia, but there they have so many African retentions.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't surprised to see the fiddle there. But the question is, and I understand, what happens with, commercialization of music, but the question is still raises for me, did the banjo fall out of favor for the guitar in Black culture? Or was it because of the way it was used in minstrel shows? And then the fiddle, the thing that it raises me about the fiddle here, we don't see even in the commercialization of Black country music,
Mm-hmm.
we don't see or hear that instrument. We don't see it or hear it being passed down generationally. We don't even hear talking about it. I'm telling you, it's a shame that I learned that we were connected to that instrument watching Roots in 1977.
And why
You
is
know?
that? Because Alex Haley, right, decided to depict and narrate the Africa to the United States narrative in ways that other people had done before, and certainly many people have done after. But when you have a Black creative who takes creative control of telling that narrative,
Yeah.
then you get the
Okay.
real picture, right? So this is
Like
what
with
Beyonce is
Beyonce,
doing.
then, right? Like with
Beyonce is a
Beyonce, we got it.
Black
Okay.
creative who's taking
Mm-hmm.
control of telling the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right?
Okay.
In a situation where others have tried to narrate our narrative almost by otherizing us and dislocating us from the creative geniuses that we are, from the resilient and hopeful people that we are, and from the most talented, I will say this, talented people on the planet.
Yeah, but see, but I hear that. But you know how in families we pass things down. So I guess what I'm getting at is, we don't see that instrument passed down among Black country people. With and I'm the banjo has a particular history. I kind of
Irene, where
see.
you from?
I'm
Where you
from
from?
Brooklyn, New York.
Okay, now
Okay,
how much time you spent down south? And I
quite
mean,
a
other than a
bit.
vacation.
Quite a bit.
How
Quite a
many
bit.
years? How many years have you lived down in the country?
Quite a bit. Let me tell you, because
See,
listen, when you're talking
see.
about Sarah County, Virginia, that is country. I actually walked a rooster, and I would walk the rooster, and the people said, "That poor child, she coming from up south." Okay, she coming from up south, meaning New York City, up
I hear
south,
you. I hear
and
you.
stuff here. But I,
Yeah.
but I guess I was trying to say that because it's that when we talk about certain instruments like the violin,
Hmm.
we don't seem to be in those, we don't seem to be playing those instruments,
Well,
you
I
know.
mean, you, we've had this conversation in a different context before. And part of it is every generation wants the next generation to quote unquote do better and be better. And
Hmm.
in that, a lot of our post traumatic slave, syndrome
Syndrome, yeah,
would have us to release that cultural legacy
and
in
trauma,
exchange,
yeah,
right? In
yeah,
exchange for something that's Western, and that would help us to assimilate into a cultural context where we can quote unquote fit in. So maybe this is the response to
response
your
to
question,
that,
because your
yeah,
question is a really good one, right? But
yeah,
but I think maybe we did
yeah,
put our banjos on the shelves or in the attics or in the basements in
hmm,
exchange for the guitar,
yeah,
or in exchange for the violin or the
hmm,
viola, because we would fit in better that
yeah.
way.
But I want to say this here, and stuff, about country music here. So I want to say that, in April of 2021, I want to just give some history here. The Black Opry
Yeah.
began
Yeah.
on a website highlighting Black country music.
Yeah.
And it was founded by Tana Davenport and Holly and Tammy. This is a husband and wife team. So it was not surprising. I just want to say that the next year, 2022, we have here, Guyton, being on the what I call the White Country Music Awards, because now with the development, it's more than speculative, with the Black Opry developing, then that I feel the industry has some serious competition,
Yeah.
and so I think they feel it would be better to bring some of these artists into the Grand Ole Opry than everyone falling, a lot of folks falling into the newfound Black Opry. I mean, I want to know what you think about that, because
Well,
see,
I
I feel like it's not it's not it's not by the good graces of country white country, the white country industry saying we're going to let you in now after all these years. I feel like there's a monetary motivation behind it.
Yeah, you getting messy here. You trying to take the scab off of a wound here, because Mickey Guyton back in 2020 had a song called "Black Like Me,"
Hmm.
and it was in homage to the Black Lives Matter movement,
Oh
and
yeah, I
that didn't
forgot.
that didn't go over
That's
that
right.
well within the country music piece, because in the country music piece around that time we were still talking about rednecks and all and Dixie chicks and all that kind of
Right,
stuff.
right, right.
So there is a kind of interesting politic of, however you want to call it, this ethnic situation going on, of whether country music is racist or not, whether it's too narrow in scope, and
Okay.
can Black people actually be a part of this genre, which is actually dominated by a culture of whiteness.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, this is matter of fact, let's just take a listen to "Black Like Me," just a couple of bars of it, just so you can hear
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Now, see, that's something else. I like that.
Mhm.
I can get down with that.
Mhm.
I can
And
get down with
to
that.
me, it falls within the formula of country music, because part of country music, as I understand it and stuff, it's telling a story.
Yeah,
It's.
yeah.
I mean, because one of the things we used to say is that country music were white people's blues. Okay, you know, and stuff. But it's to talk about the way in which it tells a story,
Mhm.
and tells what's going on in your life in present day. And so she falls within, and she has the tone. It sounds just like a country tune by a black person here and stuff. But I guess you're the brilliant ethnomusicologist. You have definitely helped me to understand more about some of the instruments, more about it, because there are tunes that I actually like. When you that I and they're artists. I mean, when Aaron Neville could sing anything, to be quite honest, I love it.
Yeah.
But when Tina died, I played some of her songs, and and this is a girl from Nutbush, Tennessee. Nutbush, Tennessee. Right. And she's got the sound, the tone. She's got the grit. The grit. Of a black country singer and stuff. And to me, I thought that once she died, that again trying to bankroll on her, that they would say, "Hey, now this is a tune, and it's a good tune. It's a good song. Yeah. It's an absolute good song." I guess for me is that when I know that, I watch ABC News. Robin Robbins is from Christian, Mississippi. She loves Roberts, right? She loves country music. But Katherine Jackson, the mother of deceased now Michael Jackson, country music. They talk about they grew up with country music. That said, now knowing your folks are from New Orleans and the country, I imagine then you had to have heard some country music, from your folks.
Nope.
No? Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Well, okay. Mm-mm. Okay, I heard it.
We were R&B, jazz, funk, gospel.
Okay,
even some classical.
Okay.
But nah, I didn't hear country until I was in college.
Oh, is that right? Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. Well, you could hear it in Brooklyn, but then they say we were kind of country anyway. And the migration up north, up south here.
You better go on and give your final word here, because we veering off. We veering off into the country.
Again. Well, all right. Well, let me thank you, Emmett, though, for your lesson here. It's just been wonderful. I do want to say this here. It really talks about how international she is, because listen, and you as well, because you were on the BBC. So I want to, really highlight that and congratulate you on that. But let me begin here. That music is one of the most powerful forms of expression. It has been a part of virtually every culture throughout history. Music has the power to help us feel connected to something bigger than ourselves. For those of us who like country music, it soothes our wounds, comforts our heart, resonates with our soul, and re-energizes our spirit. Country music, for some of us, is a call for hope, a form of prayer, and a pathway to healing. Let us see it as neither black nor white, but rather a bridge to express feelings that we might not be able to do on our own. Let us embrace its broader history, and in so doing, let us be united in enjoying the music, welcoming in its rich tapestry, and singing its songs with joy. Ashe.
Ashe.
And amen.
Amen. All Rev'd Up is brought to you by us, the Revs. Our amazing producers are Kyla Wright and Cavante Smalls.
Music for this episode is from Reverend Price's son and musical prodigy, Emmett G. Price IV. All Rev'd Up is distributed by GBH.
Additional thanks to Bob Kempf, Elizabeth O'Brien, May He, Devin Robbins, Meredith Neerman, and Zach Waldman.
If you like what you hear, let us know. Give us a review on Apple Podcasts and follow us at All Rev'd Up Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
Feel free to send us a note, a question, or a comment to allrevduppod@gmail.com. We'll be back